Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate brain fog and upgrade your health so you can have more productivity, energy, and growth in your business. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming Limitless podcast. I'm so excited to drop today's episode. I interviewed eating psychology coach Hanin Katerji, and she guides entrepreneurs and business owners to develop sustainable eating habits, enhance energy, focus, and productivity for optimal business performance. I mean, how fun is that? An eating psychology coach that works with business owners? Like, this is totally up our alley. She specializes in healing their relationship with food, addressing challenges like stress and emotional eating, body image issues, and guiding individuals to live in peace and freedom with food and body. Now, I have been in the food space a long time, which means I have done weight loss coaching. I've done precision nutrition certifications. I got certifications when I went to university in food, like blood sugar and inflammation. All that has been my thing. But in 124 episodes, I have not yet talked about stress eating this way, because as entrepreneurs, stress is something we're going to deal with. It's just the nature of running a business. There's going to be a link that breaks, a deadline that gets pushed, a client that's unhappy, somebody on social media is not nice. Like, this is something that is going to be part of the experience of entrepreneurs. But how often are you finding that you are turning to food as a way to soothe your emotions, as a way to make you feel better, as a way to deal with boredom or anxiety or overwhelm? And is this impacting you, your brain, your energy, your focus? Is it causing you to beat yourself up and wonder what is wrong with you and then spiral for the rest of the day? Or are you eating in response to relaxation? I deserve it. And these are taking you further away from who you want to be in your life, whether that is a healthy CEO, a parent, whoever that is. And so in today's episode, Hanin and I are getting really deep into stress eating. And I'm asking her all the questions. What causes it? What can we do about it? What happens? How can we recognize stress eating? And I got to say, there were more than a few things in this episode where I was like, I never thought about it that way before. That is such a cool way to frame that. And so you'll hear me throughout the episode be like, I love that. That's so cool. And because of this, I'm so excited to share this with you. I mean, in my work with clients over the last 10 years, I am no stranger to stress eating myself or in my work with clients. And so this episode is going to be packed full of value and help you not only identify if you are stress eating, but tangible, actionable steps that you can walk away with after this episode to help you begin to heal your relationship with food. Because here's what we're after. We're after food freedom, not obsessive healthy eating, not regimented eating, but really just creating a freedom with food in which you love the relationship, not only with your body, but with the food that you're eating. So without further ado, let's hop into this episode with Hanin and let's talk all about emotional and stress eating podcast. I am so excited to have Hanin here today, and we're talking about something that is prevalent with entrepreneurs. We're talking about stress eating. I've done it. Have you done it, Hanin? I imagine if you're in this field.
Yes, for years and years.
Oh, that's so good. So we're going to be going on a deep dive today. Hanin is a certified eating psychology coach, which when I saw that, I was like, ooh, that's cool, because you see so many ways to approach eating. You're like, should we focus on blood sugar if it were stressed? Should we focus on, oh, but there's this fancy diet, that diet. Should we do this? Should we do this? But eating psychology, I feel, really gets into like understanding why we're doing what we're doing and why we are eating things that maybe might not be serving us. Does that sound about right?
Yes, exactly. So, eating psychology is the science of the connection between food and our behaviors, our thoughts, and our emotions. So, it's really about looking into, as you said, why we're eating and how we're eating, not just when we're eating. And
Mhm.
the whole point is to be able to reach a place where I have a healthy relationship with food and I am able to manage and deal with what is triggering the unhealthy patterns that I have with food. So it's not only like I'm not only healing the the eating part, I'm also healing the emotions and the life experiences that I had that triggered whatever unhealthy pattern with food there is. So it is a very deep approach to health and well-being in terms of food and in terms of our emotions and our thoughts and our behaviors.
Oh, I love this. And the cool thing that I saw that was like, oh, she'd be the perfect guest is you guys don't know this yet, but Hanin actually works with entrepreneurs on
Yes.
stress eating. So it's not just like generic stuff we're going to talk about today. We're going to be addressing like a lot of the stresses we have in our businesses and how that is affecting us, and whether we're parents or we have all these other responsibilities. Like, we want to be taking care of ourselves, right? And so maybe let's back up a little bit. I mean, why don't you introduce yourself? Let's share about
Okay.
your background. Like, tell us what we need to know.
Okay, so I'm Hanin. I am Lebanese. I am currently an expat living outside of my home country. I'm a mama of 2 girls, and I'm an eating psychology coach. So, why I'm here, as I was growing up, I faced a lot of issues with food and my body image, especially that I was the chubby child in my family. And I used to receive a lot of comments on the way I'm eating, about how my body is growing. And it's the constant comparison between me and my siblings and my cousins. All of that triggered a lot of issues with food and my body image. And at the age of 15 or 16, I started my dieting journey, unfortunately, because I wanted to fit into the standards of how you should look like and how you should be eating. And here, the yo yo dieting cycle started, and I would go on crazy diets and it would fail. And then I would hop on another one. My weight would struggle. It would go up and down. My health was a disaster. My confidence was a disaster. And only when I hit rock bottom, I think in my mid 20s, that I started realizing there is an issue in here. It's not really about my food or my body. It's way deeper than that. And I remember I Google searched, like, what is wrong with me? Why am I eating this way? And here I stumbled upon the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and I was mind blown by this approach. It took me a couple of years to heal my relationship with food through the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. And then I started sharing my journey with the people around me, and they were like, wow. And I started helping people. And then it clicked in my head that, oh my gosh, I have so much potential that I can actually help people with this. So I went back to the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and I got certified as an eating psychology coach. And here I am. This year, I have been focusing more on on entrepreneurs and helping them with their empowerment in their body, in terms of their nourishment, how they feel in their body, in terms of their energy, their focus, their productivity, so that they are able to be at their best when they are operating in their business, so that they are able to reach the places they want to reach in their business. So
Yeah.
this is my story in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. Especially when there's that like personal experience in there. I mean, my journey with sleep started, postpartum, and I was like, my brain, I need my brain. And it sounded like for you, it was like, oh, I want that relationship with myself and food. Like, I always talk about this idea of food freedom not being what we think it is. Like, we often think like, oh, when I'm eating all the healthy food and I'm at the right weight and all these things, when we think those things, then we're going to be free. But I often think that sometimes healthy eating can be a jail of its own if you're still preoccupied with it. Like, I like to think of food freedom as like, I don't think about what I eat at all, because it's just like become who I am to eat a certain way. I'm not struggling to eat well. It's a freedom sense. And I imagine that's kind of like the relationship you've gotten now with food, is feeling that freedom from the hold that food had on you.
Yes, exactly. It's like when we are in our dieting era, it's like we are afraid to eat. We are afraid of calories. We are always counting, always worrying, always like depriving ourselves if we had an overeating experience the day before. So all of that is not freedom. And when we think that, as you said, we are following a strategic, healthy way of eating, if one day we, for some reason, self-sabotage or whatever, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. I'm such a loser. I have no control over myself. Where is the freedom in that? So freedom comes when I build a healthy relationship with food, and I break the fear and I break the expectations of how I should be eating, and the black and white thinking when it comes to eating. There's no black and white thinking, just like anything else in our life. So that is freedom with food. And other people think that freedom with food is to eat whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. That is also the other extreme, because although I am in a place where I have freedom with food, I still want to intentionally fuel my body so that I am at my best during my day, in my relationships, in my business, and whatnot. So there is a certain way to reach that freedom, but it doesn't mean I'm always eating healthy, or I am eating whatever I want. I'm careless. I'm free. I'm whatever, you know?
Yeah. And I think it comes down to like the compassion that you're able to create for yourself so that you're not revenge eating or like self-sabotaging in the other direction. But there was one word you said, and I've never heard it quite phrased this way. You said, um, a lot of that lack of freedom comes from the expectation that we think the way we think we should be eating. So let's start tying this back into stress eating. So what are the expectations that, in your experience with clients, that clients hold for themselves when it comes to eating? How do people think they should be eating?
Mhm. This is such an interesting question. So it really depends on how we were raised up and what influenced the concept of health to us, you know? So for some people, like the expectations of eating healthy or eating right is to always eat healthy food and avoid eating unhealthy food or processed food or bad food. And I should be in this certain weight based on my height, based on my age, whatever it is. I should not go above that or under that. So the expectation of always having the same way of eating, and that is the worst expectation ever, because
That
we
is
are
so
human.
good.
We are always evolving. Like the simplest thing is that when we are on our cycle, our eating is different than when we are like after my period. So I
Mhm.
cannot expect my body to demand certain amount of food and types of food that will be consistent throughout all of the month. This is one simple thing. So another example would be like when I traveled from one country to the other, my eating patterns changed because the country is different, the weather is different, the lifestyle is different, what is available is different, our financial ability is different, and so on. So it only makes sense that the way I'm eating and what I'm eating might be different. But the only thing that is not different is my relationship to food. So
Mhm.
I'm still honoring my body. I'm not afraid of food. I'm not afraid of this change. I give my body some time to adapt to these changes. I might gain a little bit of weight, but my body will eventually go into the biological weight where it feels that this is its normal weight, where it feels comfortable and it feels great. So I need also to always give my body the chance to adapt. Just like when you move to another country, for example, you need to emotionally and socially adapt. Your body needs the same thing. It
Mhm.
needs to adapt to the new changes that it is experiencing when you travel or whatever. So this is one example of why the expectations we put on our bodies are not realistic.
Yeah, the way you said the expectation is to keep it consistent. Like I could all of a sudden see all these thoughts that I've had over my life pop up. Like
Yeah.
there is just this expectation that because I've eaten this way for a certain amount of time, it should be that way in the future. And I think just seeing when clients enter into this space of wanting to eat healthier from a good intentional place, that they're like, that means eating this many servings of vegetables every day. That means eating at, you know, or they'll I'm not a calorie counting. I don't ever advise it unless it's just a spot check. Like, hey, are you eating enough? But when I've seen people get into this of like, I have to eat. 1900 calories per day. And it's like to this regimented amount. It doesn't matter if they're hungry or not, or if they've had a stressful day or where they are in their cycle. So that single phrase is that we have this expectation that eating should look the same every day, same amount of calories, same amount of vegetables, same amount of protein, same amount of carbs, not accounting for the fact that we are humans with human lives. And I think that's the skill we're missing, is that inability to adapt to life
Mm.
without the judgment that comes on top of it that makes it so hard. Does that sound right?
Yes, 100%.
Mhm.
So approaching it with curiosity, sometimes neutrality, with compassion and understanding that our body's needs are different from one phase, from one season of life to the other. Like the simplest thing is the fruits that grow or the produce that grow in winter are different than those that grow during summertime. So if food naturally it grows differently, how am I expecting my body to operate the same throughout the whole year or throughout the whole thing I'm going through? So yeah.
Oh, so good. So let's get a little bit more into the weeds of this. When we're talking about emotional eating, I'm going to label it as that, because just to say stress eating, there's a lot of emotions why we eat. I mean,
Yeah.
boredom, fatigue, irritation, overwhelm, anxiety, stress, all of it. So why is this happening? Like, what is it about feeling an emotion in our body that we're, and it is it just negative emotions, or do people eat in
No.
response to positive too? Like
Yes.
maybe you could speak us right
Yes.
there. That's interesting.
Yes. So here's the thing. Stress eating is a subcategory of emotional eating. So emotional eating, as you said, is when we approach food because of an emotion that is triggered in our bodies. And what happens is that we don't know how to deal with this emotion. And then we approach food. Now, here you would ask this question: why food? Why not anything else? Because our brain is always looking for the source that will give us pleasure and will let this emotion go away. And because we are humans, and this is the human evolution, food is a source of pleasure, is a source of comfort. So from here, when I am experiencing an emotion that is heightened, I don't know what to do with it, whether it's anxiety, worry, frustration, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling bored, stressed, whatever it is. I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to manage it. My brain wants to get rid of it. So here I would turn to food because it is a source of pleasure and a source of comfort. Now, here comes the other thing, is that heightened emotions is not only negative emotions. So sometimes I'm very excited. Sometimes I'm all over the place. The emotion is very heavy and I feel like I don't know how to deal with it. I'm excited. There's no one to talk to. I don't know what to do with this excitement. So I go and eat because I want to release this excitement. And sometimes people would say, I want to reward myself because I did good, because I accomplished something. So emotional eating is not only linked to unpleasant emotions, but also emotions we like, we desire. But again, because it's heightened, we don't know what to do with it. We reach out to food.
Oh, this is interesting. I'm reading a book right now, and this is not my first introduction to this topic, but it's called Letting Go by David Hawkins, and he talks about the emotional frequencies which emotions are at, and he says that humans usually deal with emotions in one of three ways: they suppress or repress,
Mhm.
they express, which will be like when we fly off the handle or something like that, and then there is escape. What would you put emotional eating into as far as those categories?
All of them. So
Oh,
sometimes we are,
that's
yeah.
I was gonna say escape. I'm so curious to hear
Nope.
what you have to say
All of
now.
them. Sometimes we want to numb our emotions. Sometimes we want to run away from them. Sometimes we want to soothe what we are going through. Sometimes we want to avoid feeling, let's say, overwhelmed. I want to avoid feeling stressed. So it doesn't really matter what I want to do with the emotion, as long as I'm reaching for food to as a way to manage what I'm feeling. This is called emotional eating.
I heard a really good analogy for this before, and it was that food dulls the sensation of the emotions.
Mhm.
Like it tampers it, it quiets it. It's kind of like, you ever seen where they have those glasses filled with different amounts of water and they hit the side of them and some of them ting, but the fuller it is, the less
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
less the vibration happens. I almost feel like those emotional vibrations are dampened the fuller we are. And especially if we can replace it by a feeling of either overfilling our stomachs or the dopamine that comes from eating something, especially sugary or like savory or something like that. We get that dopamine hit. Does that sound right?
Yes, exactly. Because food creates a change in our chemical secretion in our brain. And then when we are stressed or feeling a heavy emotion, we want to once again deal with that. So what happens is that food gives us a short-term emotion yeah, a short-term emotional release. It's not long-term. So here's like an example of the cycle of stress eating or emotional eating. So something happens, I'm triggered, an emotion rises in my body. I don't know what to do with it. I want to get rid of it. I reach for food. I eat. I feel a little bit better, but then I realize the stress is still there because the trigger is still there. So for example, if let's say I'm overwhelmed by the amount of things I want to accomplish during my business day,
Mhm.
I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I don't know where to start. I go and eat. I feel good for 10 seconds, for 1 minute. Once the thing I'm eating is over, I turn back. I still am struggling and still worried about all the things that I want to do. I'm stressed again.
Mm.
So that's the thing about stress eating, is that it will give you the short-term relief, emotional relief, but
Mhm.
the stress is still there. And you have to go back and to work with it. Now, sometimes it is to avoid. So instead of starting my work, I have a very strong resistance and unpleasant feeling to open my computer, start working. I go and eat. I spend hours scrolling, doing something else, eating, snacking, all the time, avoiding starting work, avoiding. So, and over time, the day ends and I'm like, oh my gosh, I did nothing. And then the cycle repeats again and again every single day. So it really depends on what we're doing, and then we get to see if I'm avoiding or I'm soothing or I'm trying to deal with it.
It's almost like we use eating to avoid the emotion in the same way that you would take a Tylenol to get rid of a headache. It doesn't actually say like what's causing the headache. It's just the Band-Aid on top of the headache all the time, right? If you're just medicating the pain away, the headaches are going to recur until you find what's going on. It sounds like if eating is the version of the Tylenol, so to speak, it just numbs the
Exactly.
pain temporarily. As soon as that Tylenol wears off, or as soon as that emotional eat passes, it's still left there. And we haven't actually dealt with what's underlying, it sounds like, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. We are
Very
treating the
cool.
symptom. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So we understand that emotional eating, stress eating, anxiety eating, whatever that is that we are doing. I think all of us, for the most part, get that cycle. Now, here's where I find is really fascinating. We are all smart. We've all managed to grow successful businesses here. Isn't it fascinating? And I'm curious as to hear why you might think this, that we know that it's not productive. And we
Mhm.
know that it just feels good short term. And we know that we're going to be dealing with the blood sugar swings, the fatigue, the headaches after, the disappointment with ourselves. I mean, some people go to berating themselves. Why do I always do this? The loss of productivity, the feeling more behind. Like, why do we still do it?
Yes, two reasons. The first one is that something we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, which is we are in judgment. We are judging ourselves. We are criticizing ourselves. And you cannot change something if you are coming from that energy. You cannot change something in an effective way if you are criticizing yourself, if you are labeling yourself or the behavior as something bad or unproductive or ruining your body, your well-being, your business. So for us to be able to actually do the work, the healing work that will lead us to breaking the cycle of stress eating, we want to start approaching this eating behavior from a curiosity point of view, from a neutral standpoint. I don't want to see myself as the bad person for approaching this. I don't want to be telling myself the whole time, I should have done better. I know I should have done better. I know that this is not the right way. So when I'm stuck in judgment, I can't look for solutions because I'm judging myself. But when I tell myself, okay, I'm stress eating right now. What am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed because I have a lot of things to do. Okay, let me take a breath. I breathe, I bring mindfulness into my body, and then I get to decide, is this something that is going to help me move forward? Is this something that will help me lessen the overwhelm that I have? Maybe the answer is yes, and I will still eat. And most of the time, the answer is no. And here comes the second part, which is it's a pattern. It's a pattern in the brain. And for me to break a pattern, I need time to rewire my brain. Like any other habit we experience in life, if you want to break a habit, can you break it from the first try? Can you like suddenly all of a sudden, okay, I'm cutting, I don't know, I'm breaking the cycle and I have never went and done it again. Impossible. Breaking any habit or any pattern takes time. And for me to be moving one step towards the goal that I want to reach, I want to come from a curious and from a compassionate place when I am doing the steps.
I love that. And curiosity and compassion, I really like, and that's something I've been exploring with clients this year, is because sometimes I find if you've come from a place of dealing with perfectionism or self-judgment, compassion is so hard to develop. What is kind of a stepping stone? And I love that you said curiosity because I feel like that's a softer place to start. But like
Yes.
if you're working with a client who is deep in self-judgment and perfectionism, and if it's not perfect, there is that whole inner story of shame and not good
Mhm.
enough.
Yes.
Is it questions you ask? Like what is that first step from there?
Yes. So if starting with compassion is a far dream for us, and which makes a lot of sense, we actually start from a neutral point, you know? So here I would stop and ask myself, what am I feeling? Is this something that is gonna help me? So coming from a neutral point of view is going to help me break the cycle. Now, another way that will help is to try to dissociate from the voice that is inside me that is criticizing me.
How do you
You
do
know,
that?
so yeah. So when I'm stress eating and I'm telling myself, oh, this is bad, I shouldn't be doing this, I'm going to gain weight, I'm such a bad person, I hope no one sees me. What if my clients know that I do this? You know, so all of that chatter happens in the head. So what I want to do is that I want to isolate myself from the noise, from that sound, and I want to see it as a persona that exists in me, and that's okay, you know? But I'm here and the sound is here. I'm the observer and the critic is here. So when
Mhm.
I start dissociating myself from the critic, its voice lessens, it stops over empower, like I am breaking its power over me. And from here, when I come from that point of view, eventually I will reach a place where I can be compassionate with myself. Does this make any sense?
100%. It reminds me, there's an
Awesome.
entrepreneur that I love following in the health space. His name's Brian Johnson. He's spending millions of dollars per year to look and live younger. He's a cool science experiment in himself. But he labels all his individual selves. There is
Awesome.
1 p.m. Brian, there's 4 p.m. Brian, and there's 7 p.m. Brian. And he recognized that it was 7 p.m. Brian that was struggling the most with his food. And so instead of thinking of it as like, I need to fix me, he's like, no, I'm going to work with just 7 p.m. Brian and
I
the
love it.
decisions that 7 p.m. Brian is making. And that's it. If we can just get better decisions and like develop the relationship with that version first, and then work on one at a time instead of looking at yourself as a whole that is broken in all these different areas, it just really reminded me of that. Going back to that moment where you're like, hey, what am I feeling? What's going on? I know that in that moment that I try to bring myself like back into that moment, take that pause between the emotion and the decision to eat. I notice for me, my discomfort goes up a lot because it's so much easier just to eat the cookies than it is to sit in more discomfort when you're trying to get out of discomfort. Is that an accurate experience of what happens with your clients?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And here's the thing, as we unbuckle and as we sit with the discomfort, it becomes way smaller. Its effect becomes very, very, very small. And the thing that will actually help us to sit with the discomfort is to understand the stages of stress eating.
Mm.
So if you want us to go into that, yeah.
Let's do
Okay,
that.
so
I'm
yes.
interested in this.
So okay. So stress eating or emotional eating doesn't happen suddenly. There's always a trigger. There is always something that is triggering this eating behavior. Now, if we are talking about entrepreneurship and what happens, sometimes there are like many reasons for us to be triggered. Maybe it is our schedule. Maybe my kid is sick and I'm now over all of a sudden I have to take care of my business and my sick kid. Sometimes it's thoughts, it's limiting beliefs. Sometimes it's changes in my body. Sometimes it's a client experience that is not working well with me. Maybe a client default or a client, I don't know, I'm not knowing how to work with her. So regardless of what is happening in my business and family life, if I'm not able to deal with that part effectively, it's gonna trigger my stress eating. Now, once the trigger is there, instantly I will feel the emotional eating urge. Now, the urge is the impulse, is this strong impulse inside me, strong feeling inside me that is telling me eat, 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 you know? So it's like there's something inside me that is telling me to eat. I can't. So here is the discomfort. When the urge is very strong and you know you shouldn't be eating. Now, after the urge comes the episode or the onset of stress eating. So it's either I give in to that urge and I go eat, or for some reason I stop it, I don't give in, and I continue my day without eating. So here is when I'm eating, I'm feeling guilty for eating, the stress is there, and the cycle goes on and on. So for me to be able to lessen the discomfort, I need to sit with the stress eating urge. I need to identify that, oh, this is a stress eating urge. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just experiencing a high, uncomfortable feeling in my body that is called the stress eating urge. So when I sit with it, when I identify it with time, it lessens, the effect of it lessens, and therefore the discomfort wouldn't be as high as it used to be.
This makes sense. So when you say sitting with it, it's like I get this question all the time from clients, and they'll be like, "What does it mean to feel your feelings? Like, how do
Yeah.
you do that?" I find like in general, having worked with clients, I find people are either really good at feeling or really good at thinking. And the people
Yeah.
that like you ask someone what they're feeling, and they'll tell you a sentence in their head, or you'll ask someone what they're thinking, and they'll tell you a feeling. Like I find we usually fall more heavily into one of those camps or the other. And so for the what does sitting in it mean? People in that camp. What does
Yeah.
that mean? Like, how do you do that?
It's actually it is exactly as as the word says. You actually sit with it, which means you stop whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
You give yourself some time between the urge and the eating behavior. So maybe you go on a walk, maybe you take a couple of deep breaths, maybe you do a breathing technique, maybe you just, if you were sitting, just stand up, wash your face, go into another room. So what you're doing is that you're acknowledging that there is this urge to eat, and I am going to sit with it in terms of I'm going to give my body time to fully understand what is happening. And
Mhm.
sometimes it is very empowered, it's very loud. I won't be able to sit with it. Sitting with it happens after the onset of or the experience of stress eating. So after I'm done eating, here I sit with myself and I label whatever happened from a neutral point of view, not from a criticizing point of view. So, oh, okay. So I was triggered because I was not able to finish the task that I wanted. I felt very uncomfortable and there was a strong calling for me to go and eat. Then I went and ate that chocolate bar. Then I felt guilty, then I went back to working. So when you sit with the different parts of the cycle, you understand where is the work needed that's needed to be done, and then you are able to understand what is happening so that you are able to break the cycle.
Yeah, so that kind of almost ties into this way that I've always seen emotions as a fascinating thing. I think there's the original negative emotion. Let's just say we're talking about stress or
Mhm.
anxiety. And then if we were just to experience anxiety, I think we'd have a pretty 50-50 existence of like, sometimes things are good, sometimes things are not good, right? And we'd have that experience. But I think where things start to feel really heavy is when we judge the anxiety. We feel guilty about the anxiety. We feel stressed about the anxiety. So you take the anxiety or whatever the negative emotion you're dealing with is, and you add that second layer of negativity on top, and it feels very heavy. And so some of the work that I would like to do with clients is like anxiety is the goal. Like we're over here trying to be like, I shouldn't feel like this. I shouldn't feel stressed. I shouldn't feel overwhelmed. I should feel happy all the time. I honestly just think that like if you can just sit with one layer of negative emotion, you're winning because I don't feel as we're going to be happy all the time. I genuinely think it's a solid split. And that's why we're here. We're here to have that full emotional experience. And for me, like whenever I feel anxiety, because that's my flavor. Everyone gets different flavors of negativity. Some people get shame, some people get doubt. Mine's always been overwhelm. I worry and I get anxiety. And so I just sit in there. I'm like, oh, there you are. And like I go through those kind of things. And I actually have found that making them, it's going to sound crazy, fun
Ah,
it's an
nice.
interesting way. So like my husband came over the other day. My emotional eating time, and I think it's important to identify the times that are regular triggers for you because
Mhm.
for me, it's between 1 and 4 because I wrap up work at 1 and the kids go down to nap. And so it's me time, it's deserving time, it's that reward. Mine is very much a positive, more emotional experience. But then my husband comes up and he puts 3 cookies in front of me and I was just like, that's not my choice. That's gonna be a default response right now, and I love to look at it, and I could smell the cookies, and I felt the discomfort rising, and I stepped outside and said to myself, "Ooh, we get to practice this." Like, there is no feeling I'm not willing to feel because I don't
Amazing.
I so for me, I've always turned it into a game of, like, something that's like, "Oh, this is another chance to practice my discomfort tolerance."
Yes, I love that. And here's the thing, we run businesses and stress is always around the corner. If I want to get rid of stress or anxiety or worry or overwhelm, I'm getting rid of my business because I will not grow in my business if I am not putting myself in the stretch zone. I need to be doing things that are uncomfortable because this is how I'm actually going to grow. I'm going to make, or I'm going to touch more people. I'm going to have more clients. I'm going to widen my network and whatnot. So discomfort is always part of the entrepreneurial game. But it's really about, as you said, and as you do, it's really about what you're doing with this anxiety. Are you letting it override you? Are you letting it create unhealthy patterns, whether with food or scrolling on socials or getting I don't know, in arguments with others or whatever it is? So what are you doing with this anxiety? What are you doing with this stress? And oftentimes we are creating that stress for ourselves. Sometimes, yes, the circumstance is stressful. I know that. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that. But many times we are the ones who are creating that stress. Maybe we are not being organized with our time. Maybe we are overworking ourselves. Maybe we are overbooking ourselves. Maybe we are putting high expectations on ourselves. So that stress and overwhelm and frustration also comes from our relationship to ourselves.
Yeah, it sounds like that same very similar approach we take is like the emotions and how we think that is a component, but there's also a bit of strategy in there. Like at the end of the day, it is I don't want to create a life for myself in which it's so difficult to manage my brain. Like if I'm
Mhm.
packing my schedule every minute and it's making me drop the ball here, I'm behind on deadlines, I'm feeling overwhelmed, there's no time for me, that makes it very hard for me to manage my brain. Even though I can do it, I fully believe that I'd be capable of it. I don't want to do that. Like, so I think, like you said, there's some like looking at your schedule and creating some space, right? So Okay, now I'm curious, what do you when you see someone who is working on emotional eating and they're trying to figure it out, where do you see people going wrong when they think they're fixing it, but maybe they're not? Like, what are some of the flags that maybe there might be a healthier way to help with this?
Yeah, so there are many, many things that go wrong. The first one is forcing ourselves to not stress eat or restricting ourselves from stress eating. What we're doing is we are technically masking the stress eating experience. So it's really like when I tell myself I shouldn't be eating sugar. Now my brain wants to eat the sugar
Mhm.
because I mean, when you want to restrict, the thing will get louder. So when I tell myself I shouldn't be doing this, I'm not gonna buy the things I stress eat, I used to stress eat. What is happening is that I am putting a wall between me and the stress eating experience. And whenever there's a chance, these foods are around, I will stress eat. So the
Mhm.
first thing is that not to make myself stop this stress eating experience. What I need to do is I need to unbuckle it one step at a time. So this is the first mistake. The other thing is that, and I see this all the time, and it happens with me, and it happens with almost everything else in life. When we are like, we're moving with the wave of healing with stress eating, we're doing really well. All of a sudden, I lash back. All of a sudden, I am self sabotaging. So, what happens in here is that I start labeling this as a bad experience. I start labeling this as something that I shouldn't have done. Oh my gosh, I broke it. I'm not healed. There's something wrong. This is not going to work, and so on. The thing about breaking a cycle is that moving backwards is only expected because this is how the brain works. Because when you stress eat again after, let's say, a week of not stress eating, this is an excellent learning experience for us. Because now you can see how different you are stress eating compared to before. And now you are able to bring more awareness to what is happening
Mhm.
so that you are able to actually move forward with stress eating. So the way we do it is that it doesn't matter if you are stress eating or not. What matters is that how you are showing up when you are stress eating and how you are showing up when you're not stress eating. This is what determines if you are healing or not.
So does this
You
come
know,
down to
because
mindfulness maybe? Like, is this where you
yes,
introduce Oh, okay, beautiful.
yes,
Tell me more about that.
yes, yeah, exactly. So the most important tool I share with my clients and we work with to be able to actually be stepping into healing and not make forcing ourselves to not eat is through mindful eating. This is the tool where we start bringing awareness. We start unbuckling what is happening, and because with that awareness we cannot change anything. Like,
Mhm.
if I don't know why I'm eating, how am I expecting myself to stop this behavior? So mindful eating starts from the moment the urge is there.
Okay.
Now, maybe I will find it difficult to be mindful, excuse me, to be mindful when the urge is there. The first thing for me to do is when I am stress eating, I want to shift from mindless eating to mindful eating. Because if you think about it, when I'm stress eating, I'm eating fast, I am stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm thinking about the thing that is stressing me, I'm standing up, I'm not aware of what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, the thing that I was eating, I'm done with it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just ate the whole box of cookies. What the heck
And you
happened?
didn't get to enjoy the last one. That
Exactly.
feeling.
Why? Yes. So the first thing we do is even though we are eating, I want to sit with whatever I'm eating. So instead of
Mhm.
standing up, eating from the box of cookies, I want to grab a plate, put a couple of cookies, sit down, take a couple of breaths, and eating. And I want to start eating slowly. What is
Mhm.
happening here is that I am rewiring my connection with my body. And over time, I will start realizing that, okay, I'm eating, but my body doesn't need this. So I'm not serving my body. Okay.
Mhm.
Next time this happens, the crazy urge to eat that thing lessens, Because now you can do the connection that we talked about at first, that we do this connection that this is not serving me, but I want to feel it in my body first to be able to fully understand that this is not serving me. So once again, mindful eating is a tool that will help us start breaking the cycle of stress eating. We grab whatever we want to eat, we sit down, we take a couple of deep breaths, we put ourselves in the relaxed state, we remove distractions, phones, work, whatever it is, and
Remove the phone. Did you hear that, everybody? Don't eat on
yes,
your
yes,
phone.
yes. No scrolling, no checking emails. Yeah, and then I get to sit with the experience of eating.
Okay, now I love this, and here's I think where a little bit of your insight would be so helpful. Let's say you have two different client types here. One of them says, I don't have time to do that because I've had that client before. I've probably been that client before, the work through lunch client, the skip lunch client, that experience. And then there is the I forget client, and genuine, not from a place of like it's an excuse, like they genuinely forget all of the things they're working on until it's too late and they're like half a box of cookies in. How would you approach either of or both of those clients? I know they're very different, but that's two things that I hear quite frequently.
Yeah. So the first one was, can you remind me?
Yeah, I'm too busy. I don't have
Oh yeah,
time to sit down and have mindful eating. My day is crazy. I've got employees, all the
yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes. Here's the thing is that I start with one meal. So which meal of the day can I sit and mindfully eat it? Is it breakfast? Is it lunch? Is it dinner? Is it my snacks? So I start with one meal and then I move forward. Because you know what? When I start mindfully eating, I would really appreciate that experience. And then I would want all the other meals to feel that way. Because mindful eating does magic to how I'm eating and how I'm feeling in my body. Now, the other thing is that we start to think of ways to make space for that meal. And that can be 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be like lunchtime is 1 hour. It doesn't have to be 1 hour. It can be only 15 minutes. So, how can I rearrange my schedule where I can fit in that 15-minute break so that I can sit and eat it? And then this 15-minute break becomes a non-negotiable. So I would never ever schedule anything at that time or do anything else. And I always tell my clients to think of this 15 minutes as a doctor's appointment. Would you schedule anything if you know at 1 p.m. you have a doctor's appointment? You don't. So you block it out in your calendar, and then you would schedule anything before or anything after.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So it sounds like it literally has to be something that you make a priority, and it doesn't have to be all of my meals are sit down 1 hour meals. Like 15 minutes is very, very reasonable, right?
Yes,
And now what
exactly.
about the client that forgets? Because
Yes.
it like I forgot I had to go to bed at 10 p.m. Like in the genuine forgetting, like what would
Yeah.
help that client?
Yeah. So the first thing that would help her is to do the reflection after the experience instead of before.
Oh, cool.
So she will come to me and she will tell me, oh, I did that and I totally forgot to reflect on it, to sit with it. Let's say to sit with the urge. Then we get to discuss it and reflect on it after it happened. Why we're doing this? It's because we are rewiring our brain about this experience. And then the next time, or maybe after a while of doing the reflection after the episode of stress eating or emotional eating, what happens is that she starts to become aware of it ahead of time. Because now her brain knows that, oh, when I'm eating this way, this is happening. So her brain is calculating what is happening after the eating. And her brain is like, I don't want to feel stuffed. I don't want to feel depleted. I don't want to feel like I'm in a very high energy and then a short, sharp dip. Okay. So the other thing we would do is we start rewiring our brain about the importance of prioritizing our health. So maybe she's forgetting because her health is not a priority, you know? maybe she's forgetting because she's not aware that, oh, this is not gonna serve me. This is going to create issues for me after I eat. So with time, we get to calibrate to this thought that, oh, my health is very important to me. And these eating experiences are creating an unhealthy and unwanted feelings inside me. So we start to shift that priority, because I know this and I've been there. I was in a stage where my business is everything to me. Don't come near me. Don't call me. I just want to work. Because it felt so good. But then after a while, I'm like, but I'm not feeling good in my body. My eating is all over the place. I feel like I'm not giving my kids enough time. And then I started to shift. And then I started to see my business and my health like almost at the same level, not my business and my health.
And well integrated as well, that, your eating affects your business and your business affects your eating, right? So I'm curious, I'm going to ask you a chicken or the egg question. Which came first? So let's talk stress eating and let's talk blood sugar levels. Because if we are eating foods which are causing massive increases in blood sugar and massive drops that are leading to brain fog, irritability, crashes, energy fluctuations, all of this kind of stuff, how do you differentiate between whether your blood sugar is something you need to address that is causing the emotional eating, or it's the choices you're making during emotional eating that are causing the blood sugar fluctuations? Like, how do you piece that apart?
Yes, I love that. So it's really about understanding what is happening. So if my blood sugar is what triggered that emotional eating, then I want to start bringing curiosity into, why did my blood sugar spike? So is it something that maybe I ate something on an empty stomach? Maybe I had too much coffee, and then it triggered me to eat sugary snacks and whatnot. And then I wouldn't necessarily label whatever I'm eating after the spike in the sugar level in my body as emotional eating. I would just label it as a deregulated appetite and experience in my body.
Oh, cool.
So
I like
emotional
that.
eating, yes.
Yeah.
So emotional eating is more related to the emotional side of what I'm going through. This might trigger a spike in my blood sugar, and then I would experience a deregulated appetite afterwards.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like how you piece that apart again. Like, they're interconnected, but they can also be separate, and not labeling it as like this is fault and stuff like, oh, I very
Yes.
much like that. Okay. I've got one more question left and then we're going to wrap
Let's
up.
go.
So for women who have an active menstrual cycle right now, how does this experience with stress eating change throughout our cycle?
Yes. So when we are, maybe you are more the expert in this, but my take on this is that we go through different emotional waves throughout our cycle because of the fluctuation in the hormones we are experiencing. So it is expected that emotional eating might occur. That's why I always say that we don't stop emotionally eating. Emotional eating is part of who we are as humans, because this is the human biology. But what we do is that we work on the emotional part that is triggered by external factors that do not have anything to do with our hormones, like our thoughts, our beliefs about who we are, the circumstance, the situations, and whatnot. And there's something that I noticed is that sometimes we put labels on menstruation and what we go through during our menstrual cycle. It's like, I'm hormonal. Sometimes we overrate what we are going through and label whatever we're going through as it's because of my period. And here it's like we are giving ourselves the green light, but it's actually hurting our health, and it's not fair for our menstrual cycle because not everything is because of our menstrual cycle. Sometimes I'm really sad because something happened in my business and I'm like, oh, I'm just menstruating. No, I need to go and work on that thing that triggered me. Yes, it will be more heightened because of the changes in the hormones, but it doesn't mean that when I'm on my period, I can eat as much as I want and I can be as emotional as I want. So there's a difference in that and there.
I think you said it perfectly. It's a more heightened experience, and it's not that that is causing the experience, because the experience of emotional eating happens all of the time. It's just like, is it maybe a 20% more intense sensation you have to deal with because maybe serotonin is dropped or blood sugar is more unstable. Like I love how you said that. Well, this has
Yeah.
been a fascinating conversation. And keep in mind,
Yeah.
like I have been in the food world a long time doing this. So this has been such a beautiful, fresh perspective on this. So I
Thank you.
would love like tell everybody listening, like if they want to find out more about you, where can they connect with you? Do you have any resources that they can go to if they want to continue this conversation?
Yes, that's awesome. So if anyone needs to connect with me, I would love that. They can go to my Instagram at hanin.eatingpsychology. I'm always active there. So we can chat all about their needs. There are many offers they can buy or purchase, or we can work one on one. There is the Healing with Stress Eating program currently that is available. So mainly on my Instagram.
Okay, cool. So I'll make sure I put links in the show notes for Hanin's Instagram, and her website where you can find the Healing with Stress Eating programs. That sound good?
Yes, awesome. Yes.
Awesome. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. And you guys
Yeah.
don't know this, but her and I are on a 12-hour time difference right now. So it's 10 p.m. at night. So big thank you to you for carving out this time to share with all the entrepreneurs listening. We all go through this. I think everyone experiences this. This is going to be such a valuable episode. So thank you so much for taking your time to be here. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that it really is impactful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right, you guys have a beautiful week. I'll see you next time. Bye. Want to know more about the Becoming Limitless program? Everything you need to know is linked in the description. You can head to my website at tanessashears.com to learn all about the program. Or if you're not ready to work together yet, you can check out my free podcast, Becoming Limitless. It's the go-to podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking.